right. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining Stories of a Colorful World's Authors Conversation. So we are your co-hosts, Kanika Mobley, and I'm joined with my partner, Vanessa Mitchell. And we are the founders of Stories of a Colorful World. So if this is your first time joining us, thank you. And we like to start off this conversation just by telling a little bit about ourselves. And so Stories of a Colorful World is an online bookstore that carries books featuring BIPOC characters by BIPOC authors. And really, after the stunt that Central York School District tried to pull, we know that our mission still remains important to provide books that feature windows and mirrors and sliding glass doors for our children. So if you're returning, thank you for joining us, and we truly appreciate your support. We are here today with an amazing author, Naomi Dunsen-White. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm so excited. Excited to talk with you.
We are so excited to have you. So I want to make sure that we give you an opportunity. So we just like to kick it off and just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so I am a children's book author, and my first book is Jahari the Great. It's Jahari behind me, Jahari the Great. And I wrote a book about a boy who was encouraged by his teacher to use his imagination to write. And not only are there not enough books that represent our children, but in particular our boys, you know, and there's a certain age point where we have to make sure that we keep the interest of our boys when it comes to reading. So I wrote this book. He's inspired by his teacher to write. He discovers that his superpower is in writing. And he writes a wonderful story. He has to read it in front of the whole school, and you know, there's a mystery, and he sees himself as a superhero. So that was my first book. And I'm very determined. I always say that I am going to close the diversity gap in the children's literature industry, because I'm very passionate about it. I get upset about it. And I do believe that we must have equity in literacy for our children. We just must. We must have that. So that's why I write the books that I do for children. My second book for children is called Why Am I Here? A child's book about purpose. And this book I just released in the Kickstarter campaign. So today starts my second week. It's going very well. And my mission is to give this book to inner city children starting in my home state of Michigan. And I'm sure most people are aware of Detroit, Flint, and Pontiac, areas that are often overlooked, definitely underserved. And I want to reach those children with a message of hope and purpose. So most times I just run my mouth about diversity. I'm on social media talking all the time about diversity and equity and literacy. And that is what I feel called to do. And I will continue to do that.
Well, we certainly love what you're doing and love your books. And that's one of the reasons why we wanted you on a conversation with us. So kind of thinking about, so you're an author now, but how were you as a reader when you were younger? And how did reading, if you were a reader, how did reading play a role in your life?
Reading was everything to me. And reading still is my love. You know, I do love to write, but reading is my first love. I went through some childhood trauma, and I was very withdrawn. It kind of went inside myself. I like to describe it that way. It held a lot of things in, but reading was my escape. It was my fun. Books were my friends, you know, and I could lose myself in a book and go places and experience all kinds of feelings. And I learned so much from the experiences of others. And I've always been a reader. I've always been an accelerated reader, reading well past my years. So I would be reading things that probably maybe some children wouldn't be interested in. But I have always loved to read, and I developed a love for writing very early. Mm-hmm.
So you sound like my son, who loved reading and is accelerated. And did you always, so as you grew into your love for writing, did you always aspire to be a writer?
I did. I remember when I was young, I thought, well, I could be a writer, but I didn't know what that meant. What was I supposed to write? I just thought, if I could write and get paid for it, that would be really great. But it didn't turn out that way for quite some time. I used to just write to get my feelings out, which I think is very therapeutic for children. Even if it doesn't make any sense to anybody else, just to get their feelings out. So I encourage children to write. And that's why my first book was very important, because we all want to have books to inspire children to read, but this book inspires children to write as well, to use their imagination and forget about what's going on. Just be free and just write down what you feel and imagine and fantasize about. It's very therapeutic, very. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I used to write poems and then throw them away. Oh, and when I was in high school, oh my gosh, you know how that is. Oh, I just went on and they were horrible, I'm sure. But I got all my feelings out, right? I got all my feelings out.
Do you have any of your early stuff still?
Oh, I do. Trust me, I do. I told my husband one day, I was like, these old journals, I need to rip these up, because if, when I'm gone and the kids find these journals, they're going to think, oh my gosh, what happened? What was going on with her? So some of them I literally have thrown away because they were just very melancholy and so dramatic. Oh, I mean, so dramatic. So it was just kind of fun. But again, I'm releasing my feelings, right? I'm releasing my feelings. Mm-hmm.
So as a child, you were a reader and a writer. At what point in time did you make that click, make that switch and say, you know what, this is what I am designed to do. This is where I need to display my gifts and talents?
Yeah. I was always the one that everybody came to for writing. Oh, I need help with my resume. I need help with this paper I'm writing for school. I need this application. I need to write this for my job. I was the person to come to because I love writing and editing, a lot of editing. I'm also an editor. I forgot to throw that in there, but I edit as well. And several years ago, I wrote a story for my oldest grandchild, and I was going to give it to him for his birthday. And it really it was supposed to be just a little short story for him. And it turned into Jahari the Great. So Jahari is my grandson's name, Jahari. It means jewel in Swahili. And so I read it to my daughter, and she's like, Mom, this is a book. This is not a story. This is a book, my son's wife, but she's my daughter. And so my son read it, we were all like, okay, this is a little bit more than just a little story. And so I said, I'm going to hold on to it and I'm going to publish it. And then life just got in the way, you're working, you're this and all these things. And then in 2020, I was like, okay, this is the year I've got to publish this book. I've got to publish this book. And my husband was like, you really need to do it. You've been talking about it for too long, and just do it. And so I did in 2020, fall of 2020.
Oh, I love that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's been a good success. The reviews are great. I'm really happy that people enjoy it. Even adults tell me they couldn't wait to finish it to find out what happened.
Right.
Yeah, so it's been well received, and I'm very proud of it. And I think it's a lovely story, again, to encourage reading and writing. And there's worksheets in the back of the book, which are excellent for a quick skills checkup, because I'm very big on vocabulary and comprehension. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So something that stuck with me about Jahari the Great were the adults that poured into him, right? So it was like his parents were pouring into him. His teacher, Miss Gilchrist, you know, she continued. Like, was that an aspect that you went into the book wanting to highlight?
Yes, yes. And I wanted to dispel some of these offensive myths about Black families. That was key. I wanted there to be a very strong bond between him and his dad. Key. I wanted there to be respect for the teacher, because people need to know that, yes, the teacher does speak into your child's life. You know, and every day you're sending your child to school, and a good teacher can make a child just want to reach for their dreams. You know, so that was her role. Besides, he did have a little crush on her. I think might be a little crush there. And, you know, she inspired them. So one of my favorite quotes from the book that I put on some of my marketing materials is from Miss Gilchrist. And she says that life without imagination is like chocolate chip cookies without the chips. And that's how she taught them to use their imagination to write. So yeah, those adults. And then to solve the mystery, he needed his community members.
Absolutely.
And I wanted the readers to see that he knew his community members. And it's that village concept that I was trying to portray. He knew his mail carrier by name. He knew his neighbor. You know, he knew the shop owner down the street. And he went to his community to help him solve his problem. And so that was important to me. And I wanted the children to see that. I wanted the parents to pick up on that as well. That it was a village, you know, pouring into Jahari's life, helping him to be a success.
So, you know, one of the things that's really important to us, why we chose to focus on carrying children's books that not just feature diverse characters, but are told from the authentic voice of authors from those same diverse groups, right, is that there's authenticity in the story that you're telling, that others may not be able to pick up on those cues and nuances. Exactly. Right. And also to see that that's normal everyday life for all of us. I know that growing up, I had a village. I grew up in Queens Village, but that was my village. That was my community.
Your community.
That was absolutely pivotal in my life and all of my friends that I grew up with. And so that's not an oddity.
No, it's not.
But you need to see more stories that talk about that.
Exactly. Because the other side, and excuse me, but I'm just going to say the other side, they don't realize that that's a big part of the Black community. When I'm much older than you ladies, but when I was growing up, not that I would cut up, but if you did cut up and Mrs. Rose over here saw you before you got home, oh, she was going to get with you and then take you home, and then you were really in trouble. So we had that community looking out for us, and people on the street knew each other and, you know, kept an eye out for the children. And so I wanted to put that back into the Black story. And you're right, I'm Black. And so I know that's my experience and I'm giving it to you. And it is so important that these characters, yes, we want to see characters of color, but the story from the author of color gives it authenticity. And that's so important.
And that's what kids connect to, right?
Yes.
I know that that's my experience. So I want to see that in the books that I'm reading as well.
Yes.
But one of the things that strikes me is certainly the cover of Jahari the Great. And, you know, you're looking at it and he has on a cape. He has the, you know, his fist raised with the pencil in his
with the pencil,
yeah.
And his notebook.
And his notebook. So what was the importance of the illustrations and the imagery to reflect the story that you were trying to tell?
I wanted the children to immediately see, okay, he's a superhero of some kind who's got a cape, but look what he's holding up. Right. You know, he's not dancing, he's not playing basketball, you know, you can't tell what kind of superpowers he has, but he's holding a notebook and a pencil. And that image says a lot to a child. Yeah. That says a lot. And even the back cover, this is on the back cover, he's still got his pencil. You know, and like, hey, this is my superpower. He discovered his greatness and the community, his family, even his friends in the contest, even the ones who didn't win, they were cheering him on. So I wanted to make sure that I put some of the SEL, the social emotional learning, into the book as well, because that's important. Being a sore loser, you know, you're not going to be a sore loser. Everyone should cheer for each other. So those types of things. So yeah, I'm glad you said that, because the cover, I wanted immediate recognition. Okay, there's some writing going on here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is more than him flying through the air or having a superpower. So yeah, that was important. I wanted to grab the children with that right away.
Absolutely. Because we do say like images matter, and like those details actually matter.
Yeah.
You know, even having, I know something that Vanessa and I talk about all the time is we are always on the hunt for books that have male characters.
Yes.
Because even within the disparity of books featuring characters of color, it's like when we get to, say, particularly picture books, it is so limiting to find books with male characters of color.
Yeah. Lots of princesses and, you know, dancers and ballerinas and flowers. There's a lot of that, which is good.
Absolutely. And I think that's something that happens when we see shifts, right? So when there was a movement to make sure that girls feel empowered and that they have images that support them in building self-esteem, it's like we also can't forget to, you know, about our boys as well.
Right.
It's like, how do we create images for all of our kids to make sure that they're seen and valued? And that is definitely something we're constantly, you know, on the lookout for, which is why it is important to show those images of those males, especially when it's limited, and having those images to say like, look, this is another image, and this is something, there are kids that look like this and that do this and write amazing stories in our creation.
Yes. Right. Yes, parents are noticing that too, because I get that. I just did a book fair and the mother said, oh my gosh, it's a boy. Like, I need this for my son. You know, she bought it because it's a boy and he has a pencil. Oh yeah, we have to get this. You know, because of what you said, there's not a lot of our boys being represented, and young boys.
Right.
Not the YA teenage, but young boys.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And it's funny because as a consultant that goes into schools, right, I see the same disparity in terms of like teachers in early elementary. Like you rarely see a male teacher in pre-K or kindergarten or first grade. You know, my son didn't have his first male teacher until 5th grade.
Wow.
You know, so where is that representation that, you know, that supports them when they're growing as well?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a very good point. But we're making progress though.
Are making progress, absolutely.
See it all the time, and the books that we're finding, and the gems that we're finding that others may not know about, that tells us good stories. And the one of the things Kanika and I definitely look at is always the imagery, right? It's the illustrations. Does it speak to you? Does it call you? Even for me as an adult, right? Does it speak to me? And so that's something that we always pay attention to as we're looking at the book.
That's good.
Because I think it's important. Like you want the book to capture any reader, right?
Absolutely.
You want it to instantly capture their attention, and you can do that through pictures to get them into opening the book to read the words.
That's right. That's right. That immediate connection. There should be something there that compels them to take another look.
Yes. Yeah. So how was the journey in finding the illustrator and getting her to actually design what you intended to match the story?
I have to tell you, I feel like I am one of the most blessed authors because my illustrator is absolutely amazing. Now, I thought she was amazing with Jahari. And literally when I saw the first illustration, I was in tears because she understood exactly what I wanted him to be. And then all of the other illustrations are very they're very bright, and it's very clear what the picture is supposed to be representing. It's very clear that they're complementing my words. Yeah. And she actually draws by hand, so they're not graphically done like computerized pictures. She actually draws by hand, which is amazing to me. She's very talented. And this next book, I don't even know what to say. I want to say she took it to like a whole nother level. It sounds so cliche, but she did. And Megan, her name is Megan Rizzo. And Megan actually is an art therapist. So this next book is very emotional. It's a strong message about hope and purpose and diversity and unity. And she just knows how to put bring the emotion out of the images. And you just feel it, because we're dealing with it. Jahari was great. I love this book, but this next one is a whole different, there's power in it, there's power in that message, and that needed to come forth through the illustrations, and she's done that. So I don't know what I'm going to do with my next book if Megan Rizzo is not available. Megan, I hope you're listening, because I don't know. I told her that she's great, and she's moving on to some really great opportunities, but she is extremely talented. Can I show you the cover on this next one?
Absolutely.
You'll see what I mean. I hope this shows well. I don't know if it will, but look at those children's faces.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It looks like they're asking me, like, why am I here?
Absolutely.
Right. So the book is filled with that kind of wondering, and the progression of the fun and whimsical. It starts out, and then it gets more serious. And you can see that right along in the illustration. So illustrations, so important. They're just so important. Like you said, Vanessa, to the children and to the parents who are purchasing the books.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So let's dive into your latest book, Why Am I Here? Were there any like particular experiences or like a series of experiences that let you know that this would be your follow-up book?
This wasn't even supposed to be my follow-up book, because a lot of people are asking for another Jahari book, which is in the plans. But another book came to me in between Jahari and this book. And I'll share my experience with you. It's kind of dramatic, but I was doing something in the kitchen, and I just felt compelled to go to the computer. So I did, and I just opened up this document. And honestly, I just started typing, and this story just poured out of me. I was crying, and I was typing, and I was so inspired. I did not think about this book. I did not plan this book. And literally my heart was just so full. This book poured out of me, and I was tears in my face and coming down my face, and my hands were flying. And when I stopped, this book was done. That is the truth. That is the truth. Wow. And the only thing that changed in this book was one day I was just praying for the kids, and something had happened I saw on television. It was during the protest, the George Floyd protest, and a lot of uproar, and they were treating those protesters so badly. And and I was like, this is bothering me, and I'm a grown woman. I'm a grandmother. And what are the children thinking about this? What are our children of color, our Black children, thinking about all of this violence and animosity? And it just really, really touched my heart. And I was really upset, and I was inspired to go back to this book. And there are 2 pages that I added. And there are pages that my illustrator and I, one of them we call the Unity page, because the illustration is literally children of all different skin color, size, body ability. There's a child in a wheelchair. There's a child with a prosthetic. There's a very small child where obviously the child is way smaller than you would think. There's a child who's larger than you would think is average. There's a child with fair skin. There's a girl in her hijab. I wanted every child to be able to look and say, that could be me. That represents me. And they're standing as if in front of a protest crowd. The crowd is behind them, and they are joining hands in front of this crowd with their signs that diversity matters. You know, we support each other. We are all one. And it just gives, I get choked up because it just gives a message that this generation can change this mess.
Absolutely.
And so the words actually say, you know, we are strong. We stand together, united and strong. And that was the only change to the book, where there's 2 pages with all of these children, all of these beautiful children from all different cultures and backgrounds. And like I said, even the way they look, you know, their bodies, the way they look, but they're all beautiful and they all have a purpose. And I want them to know that. So that's one of my favorite parts of the book. But other than that, those are the only 2 changes. And it's just a beautiful story. It's written in prose. So I went back to my poetry writing, but it's good this time. You know, and it's for the Jahari the Great is 2nd to 5th grade, although some older kids told me they liked it too. So this book would be, because it's in prose, you could read it to a young child for story time. And I would say up to about 5th grade, I would say. I read it in a clubhouse room recently, and the adults, when I stopped reading, it was just silence. And the adults were like, I need that book. Wow. You know, because we all struggle with that. We're all going to ask ourselves one day, why am I here? What is my purpose? And we don't talk about that. I struggled with my purpose, you know. I struggled, you know, not knowing. I was doing good things with my life, but it was like, is this what I'm supposed to do? You know, why am I here? What purpose am I serving? So I feel if we present this to children in a loving, encouraging way, where it's still fun and it's still full of possibilities, but we deal with some certain issues that they may face, some obstacles that we know are there, but we present it in a way like, if you stand together, it's going to be okay. And in the book, I actually lay out that there's a path that only your feet, it's made for your feet, not anybody else's. And there's a door that's open waiting for you to go through, because you do have a purpose in the future that is bright. So that's what this book is about.
Wow. So powerful. So powerful.
I'm just so blessed.
Imagine children as they become adults, when they start thinking about these things and reading books that, you know, tell these stories and get them to think, when they start so early, who they then become as adults.
Yes.
Right. Like that is so powerful, because you're right. We consider this as a grown woman. I still have this question sometimes.
Yes.
What is my purpose? Why am I here? So,
but you're working it out though, right? You're working out. And sometimes it even changes. Their shifts. I mean, you guys pivoted so well with even your business purpose, right? And I know now, because I made a pivot myself and went for my dream. I know my purpose is to use my words to speak into children's lives.
Right.
I know my purpose is to tear down that wall, that diversity gap in children's literature. I know that. I feel that now, you know, I know that. And that's why I want to give this book, you know, to inner city children, because when you're living in an environment that's so challenging, that can really do something to you when you're young. You know, if you don't see a lot of hope around you, where do you get it?
Right.
You know, if nobody's talking to you about your purpose, what are you thinking? So that's why I want, you know, I want this book in their hands. So that's why I went to Kickstarter, so that people can, you know, join me in this mission and help me to do it. You know, help me to do it, because they need that. They need that. Their parents need it too. Because sometimes, you know, you get stuck of no fault of your own, you know, and you're stuck in an area where you feel you're not moving and progressing, and all hope is lost, or you have no purpose, but that's not true. It's not true. So that's my mission.
Absolutely. And I think particularly coming out of, you know, 2020, you know, and people having to reevaluate, you know,
Yes.
where they are, kids having to learn new skills and, you know, adjust so quickly to things.
Yeah.
You know, we all did. And so I feel like this is timed so perfectly for this like new, almost like reinvigoration, right? A way that we can reimagine
Yes.
what things look like and how we feel about things.
Yes. And express it, you know,
Absolutely.
express it and encourage it. So that's what I wanted to do in this book, is encourage them to dream. You know, there's a one illustration that Megan did where the words say, sometimes I sit and I think about me. You know, she's thinking about herself. And so Megan has this illustration where she's in her bedroom, that one of the characters, and she's just looking out of the window. She's daydreaming. I mean, kids need to be free to daydream. And she's thinking about herself. I wonder what I'll be. I wonder what I'll do. I'm just sitting here thinking about my future. You know, and that's an innocent thing, but our world is so crammed full of everything. You know, the children with the virtual school, are we going back to school? And then all the stuff that's going on. I just want them to ponder and have fun and just be whimsical and imagine silly things, you know, and just daydream. I mean, a simple thing like daydreaming, you know, that was important to me to have that in there, you know.
And all the possibilities it creates too.
Yes.
Right? Like this world is full of possibilities. It is limitless.
Limitless, absolutely.
I absolutely love that. So how are you doing with the Kickstarter?
It's going very well. You know, I've been working my buzz off, though. I will tell you that. Ooh, I've been working so hard. But you have to with Kickstarter. It is constant, and you really have to do your homework. You really have to prepare and do your research. And it was great. I mean, I got the badge, their badge of honor, project we love. When Kickstarter gives you that badge, that's a big deal. So you get free promotion with that. And so when people are scrolling on there, your project will come up as something that Kickstarter recommends, and that's great. So I'm on my 8th day, and it's 29 days because you want to be under 30 days. They recommend under 30 days. So I'm on my 8th day, and I just got the email before we came on that I'm 76% funded. So I'm excited. I'm excited. Now, I would love to get to 100 by the end of next week, this week here, to have this week, because I need to exceed my goal because I need more books to give to the children. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm not going to stop just when I get 100% funded. I need to double, triple, you know, I'm going to keep pushing. Yeah, I'm going to keep pushing. And some of the rewards I have is where you could sponsor a whole classroom and send me to the school to do a read aloud and an author visit, a book signing, and like a Q&A with the kids, you know, ask questions and just spend time with them. Those things matter to kids, you know, that matters. And it matters that somebody thought enough of them to buy a book for them. So what I do with my book donations, every single book, I don't just drop off books or send books. I have a label that goes inside of each book, and I put each donor's name inside, because when the child gets a book and they open it and they see, oh, this is Mr. Johnson, who I don't even know this guy. He bought me a book. You know, that's so special. It's like somebody thought enough of you to buy you a brand new book. They don't even know you, but they care enough about you to buy you a new book. So that's important to me. So that's why I take the time to put a label inside every single book, every one. Absolutely. I want that child to feel special.
So for those people who may not know what your mission is or what your goal is around this Kickstarter, can you tell them a little bit more about like why you decided to start this Kickstarter and like what you plan to do with it?
Yes, thank you for letting me do that. Sometimes I'm not as clear. I get talking, but with Jahari the Great, my heart is to give. My heart is to help children with literacy, and I wrote Jahari the Great from a teacher's eye, you know, with a focus on Common Core vocabulary and reading comprehension. And there's a lot of good writing techniques that are helpful in the story. So I wanted to make sure I got this book into the hands of kids who maybe were struggling with literacy or just needed a little extra help. So I linked up with a group here in Michigan called Center for Success, and they provide literacy services to a lot of inner city schools. So some of my customers and friends and family and just nice people, joined my little campaign, and we were able to donate 300 books. And so that we donated them to the Literacy Center because then they were able to distribute them to the children who were already being helped. So they used them as gifts for the children when they met their literacy goals. So that was like my dream. That's exactly what I wanted. So they were able to do that. And so this time, it's just me. I'm just a one-woman show, with my books. But with this book, the way it came to me, the way it was given to me, it was like a gift to me. And I felt like it was a gift to me to give to the kids, especially with this message of purpose. And I knew it was supposed to be on a grander scale than, 300 is nothing to laugh at. I mean, it's great, but I want to be able to reach more kids. I really, really do, because of this message of purpose. So that's why I went on Kickstarter, because anybody from anywhere can, back your mission. They can purchase a book for their own child because it's an awesome book for any child. Any child needs that message. And then they can donate, to students. And my hope is that, some businesses, they could afford to donate books for a whole classroom, or 2 or 3. I wouldn't be mad at that.
There's no limit.
Many as possible.
Right.
So that's why I did that, because I cannot afford to just give them all away. I tried with Jahari, but I want to give as many as possible. And I'm talking to the agency again. They're helping me to kind of figure out what schools, are already doing the extra and going the extra mile, getting the help and the services for their children. And those are the schools that I want to support. And so I picked the areas that do struggle a little bit, areas that are overlooked and underserved. And most people know about Detroit. We have our struggles in Detroit, but it's a great city. We love our kids. In Pontiac and Flint. And a lot of people remember Flint from the water crisis. Right. And some of those children are still struggling because of the effects of that water, right. That has caused them to struggle. It has affected their body and their brains, and it's terrible. So those are the 3 areas. And that's why I kind of went public for help, because the more I receive, the more books I can print. And one thing that was very important to me, it creates a challenge for me as the author, but it was very important to me. If I feel called to serve the Black community, it's very important to me to put my dollars in the Black community. Mm-hmm. So what happens on Kickstarter, because you're talking volume, a lot of authors will go to China, order their books from overseas, mainly China. And that's fine if that's what they want to do, because you can get them cheap, like a third of the cost or more. But I'm not trying to support China. I'm trying to help my children here, and I'm trying to, help the Black community. So I'm working with a business that is has been serving that community in Detroit for over 40 years. It's a 3rd generation Black-owned family business, woman-run. Wow. And they're in the heart of the city. So they have employees, they pay taxes go to schools. That helps the children, that helps the community. And that's what we're trying to do. So it creates a higher expense for me, but I just have to do that. I don't want to be hypocritical in my message and say that I really want to help this community, but then I'm going to send my books to China so I can make a few extra dollars or save a little bit extra money. So I feel like God will bless me for that sacrifice, and I'll be able to bless the community. So that was important to me.
I just love that. So, as and we ask authors this question all the time, is what advice they would have for up and coming authors that are thinking about going the Kickstarter route, getting illustrators, putting pen to paper and just writing their stories. So do you have any advice for other authors?
I do. I would say don't wait. The need is there, especially for BIPOC authors. Think of our children. Think of our children. When I was growing up, I read all the time, but these are all, non-Black characters. And I remember the first time that I had a book with a Black character in it, and it was a little girl, and her name was Lisa. And I stared at that book for the longest time. I took it out of the library, kept it, for my 2 weeks. I checked it out again and kept it for my 2 weeks. The book is Corduroy the Bear. Do you remember this story?
Oh, absolutely.
And the little girl was Lisa, and she was a pretty little girl, and her mother was all dressed up, and they went to the big department store, and she had a little scarf on, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I loved Lisa. I loved her. And that impacted me. The author's name was Don Freeman. Don Freeman was white. Okay, a lot of people think that he wasn't, but he was white. And so is Ezra Jack Keats, white. But he was telling our stories. They were telling our stories. I didn't know that then. I thought, oh, it has to be a Black person. Right? I learned later that Don Freeman, one of his best friends, was a Black man. And Lisa was a character that he created from his best friend's daughter. And she actually has a blog and she talks about that story. Yeah, and it was kind of on the low because they didn't want him to have, they didn't advise this character. They didn't agree, but he pushed forth with it. And it was a success to this day. That's one of the books that are still very popular in the library. So that gives me that motivation, with the whole diversity issue. And that was 1968, that book was published. And then, of course, Ezra Jack Keats with all those beautiful stories with Peter and the letter for Amy and the snowy day and all of those stories. But yeah, I would say write your book. Write your book. One thing that I is like a pet peeve of mine. We do need stories for our children, but don't give the children trash. Don't do that. Don't do that.
Absolutely.
Don't just say I'm gonna write a book and just put it out there. No, it's for the children.
Absolutely.
That's very important. Make sure you have some academic value in there. If you can throw in a little SEL, something that helps them with their emotions and feelings, that would be wonderful. But let's make sure we're giving our children quality because they deserve it. It's not enough to just have a Black character. No, let's work on it. And, they deserve it. Think about what they deserve and give that to them. So sometimes I'm a little disappointed. Like, I'm glad there's a character here, but we need some academic value for our children here. So
absolutely,
that's what I would say is definitely right. And if you can find somebody, to mentor you, that's excellent. To help you really develop your story and get your message across, that's excellent. It is difficult being a self-published author, as you guys know. You're pretty much floundering and figuring it out as you go. So I do a little coaching now with not young, but new authors. Because I'm an editor, I can help them with that in that way. And then there's, I can help them with the steps that they need to take along the way, like getting on Amazon and how to do certain things to present your book in the best light. And there's help out there now. I love supporting other authors, even on social media, like on Instagram. I'm always trying to be of help because you need help. You need help. And I always say, like, if we support each other, then we all win.
Yes.
And if we win, our children win.
absolutely.
And isn't that what we're out here doing? Isn't that what we're doing? That's what we're doing it for. So I'm not in competition. I'm happy if someone buys your book. I hope you're happy when someone buys mine because they're going to our children.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I hope I answered your question. My advice is write the book, get some help. And really, if you do your research, that's help right there.
Right.
You know, you can definitely do it. But as the more, the better. Just make it quality. Just make it quality.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that is almost easier now, not easy, but easier, because there are so many communities, you know, with social media that, you know, authors can go to.
You can get help
for support. And you can find so many people who are willing to support.
Yes. Yeah, there's a really strong author community on Instagram. Yeah. Because when I started a year ago, well, it's been over a year now, I didn't know anything. I really didn't. And I made all kinds of mistakes, you know, but you learn from those experiences. And I ended up with a very good support network, you know, that I'm very proud to be a part of. And I'm proud to, when someone comes to ask me a question, I'm very proud to be able to help, you know, because someone helped me.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Yeah.
And so what does diverse representation in children's books mean to you?
Oh, yeah. That to me means that I don't have to go to the Black section, and that my child or my grandchild doesn't have to go to the Black section in the bookstore. Because why is there a Black section? And I've never seen a European section. So why do I have to go to the Black section? Because we're all here in this country, aren't we? I mean, we're all writing books.
Right.
Mm-hmm. But there is a large diversity gap, and there is not the representation. You just think about it. Now in 2020, I follow the Children's Cooperative Book Collection, CCBC. And when I found out about them, I contacted them myself and I started a dialogue with them. And they shared all kinds of information with me. I was very surprised and very appreciative. So I started sharing a lot of their information on social media. And that's how a lot of people started following me, because I was putting this information out there and it was mind blowing. Okay, out of 3,000 books in 2019, you have 11% that are Black characters. 11%.
And then how many of those are actually written by somebody who's Black?
Even lower. So I was just furious. I was like, this can't be. And so I started sharing that, and I continue to do so. If you combine, and of course, Latino, even lower. Asian, lower.
Right.
Native American, almost non-existent.
Exactly.
All, you know, if you combine all of the people of color, the authors of color, or the characters of color in the book, it doesn't even represent the books that have characters that are animals and talking cars and, you know, talking animals with toys, whatever.
Yep.
And they still feel, that's 29%, by the way, they still feel, the publishing industry still feels that people would rather have a book about animals who talk or a car who talks than characters of color. And I find that very offensive. So that's when I knew what my mission was going to be. Yeah. Because that is, first of all, it's not true.
Right.
It's not true.
Right.
It's not true. And the other part of that is that books with characters of color are not just for people of color.
Absolutely.
Because I grew up, didn't I just tell you, I grew up reading their books. So why are you having a problem reading mine? I don't understand that. We need to learn from each other's experience. And that's one way to even this field. But the industry is 80% European. So that perspective is what is presented. And so until we start tearing that wall down, it's just an uphill climb, you know. But the more we do things like this, like you give opportunities, you know, to talk and to promote authors and their missions, and, you know, more people get on board, like, yeah, oh, I didn't know that, you know, and it kind of gets you a little upset too. And we start, you know, working together to change it, you know, working together to change it. Right. So that's important.
That is absolutely right. And we are in this fight together.
Yes.
To disrupt what has been considered the norm.
Amen.
So Absolutely. So this has been such a great conversation.
Well, I've enjoyed it. I hope I didn't talk too much.
No, I mean, we really, that is one of the main reasons we do these conversations. Is not for Kanika and I to talk, right? We're just the booksellers, but we think it's so important for the authors to be able to tell their stories, talk about their books, talk about their mission, their inspirations, their experiences and journeys.
Yes.
This was perfect. Absolutely.
Thank you. I appreciate it so much. I really do. And I appreciate what you're doing. This is needed. We're not going to get too far unless we have this type of platform and your online store. You know, we have to have a place to go.
Yeah.
And I feel like, okay, if you're telling me I have to go to the Black session, then I'd rather go to the Black store, the whole store.
Exactly.
So I'm good with that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I want to make sure we tell people again where they can find Jahari the Great, how they can support the Kickstarter for Why Am I Here? How can we follow you? Give us all the details.
Okay, good. You can follow me on Instagram and Facebook. Both are Naomi Books LLC. Naomi Books LLC. And you can visit me on my website at naomibooks.com. And Jahari the Great is there. You can find Jahari the Great on my website, as well as links to the Kickstarter. And the number, I don't have that link memorized because it's a bunch of numbers and things. So you could go to my website and just go to the Kickstarter, but I would love the support. And I would love for everyone to have the copy of the book for themselves. You know, I would love that. I want to get this book into as many children's hands as possible. And grown-ups too. Grown-ups are going to love it.
Definitely. And we want to help you do that. So we'll make sure that we repost it and we post the links to how folks can find you, how can they
Thank
find
you.
books, and support you in any way that we can.
Thank you so much.
So Naomi, it has been an absolute pleasure. We will make sure that we continue to push your work because we think it's good work that needs to be in the world, that needs to be in the hands of children. So whatever we can do again to support you, we absolutely will.
Thank you. That means so much to me. That touches my heart. I appreciate you both so much. I really do.
Thank you.
And you all keep doing your good work too. You're making a difference.
We will. We absolutely will. And for all those that tuned in, thank you for joining us. Again, we do the authors conversations weekly. Sometimes we have new authors and sometimes we do rewinds. So you'll get to hear Naomi's conversation once again. We'll repost that as we move along. So please check that out. You can also follow us on our website, www.storiesofacolorfulworld.com. We'll have this conversation posted as well as all of our past conversations as well. We have a newsletter. So if you haven't done it yet, make sure you join our newsletter. We have our themes for the month. So each month we pick a theme where we identify some picks for the month within that theme. So September's was celebrating cultural diversity. And then October, which is, I guess, right around the corner. That's been fast. But October's will be forgiveness. So we'll have something for the month that will be centered around forgiveness, and that'll be added to our book collections for books that are available for sale on our website. So please make sure you join the newsletter. You can always find out what we're doing. Speaking of what we're doing, we'll be busy over the next 2 weekends. So we've got 2 events coming up. Let me make sure I get these right. So on September 25th, we'll be in Brooklyn at the Black Girl Magic Street Fall Harvest Festival. I'm sorry, the Black Girl Magic Street Fall Harvest Artisan Market in Brooklyn, New York. That's 372 Tompkins Avenue in Brooklyn, and we'll be there from 12 to 6. So Kanika will be representing us. So please stop by, check us out, pick up some books. We'll have some great titles. And then again on October 2nd, so the following weekend, we'll be back in Brooklyn at the Booze and Boobs pop-up shop. And so it's to recognize Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So please come out and support the event, but also and other small businesses, but also come by our booth and get some books. Again, we'll have some great titles, and that's at 832 Flatbush Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. So we've got those two events in New York. I do want to give a shout out to an event we had yesterday at the Gather Forest School. So thank you to Ashley and Shelby who invited us to come to their fall festival. It was such an awesome event. The kids absolutely loved the books, and special shout out to two of our authors that we've had on Authors Conversations previously. Jasmine Owens, who is the author of Girls Can Dream, and Veta Chantel, who is the author of Little Black Boy and Little Black Girl. They came out, they did read alouds. The kids loved them, the parents loved them. So we appreciate them, appreciate all of you authors, absolutely appreciate all of you authors, and look for more opportunities to support you guys and getting your works out into these hands of these young readers. So again, thank you guys for joining us. It is always a pleasure. We will see you next week. Naomi, once again.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, everybody. Have a good night.